Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. My name is Miss V, and I've got another incredible guest. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Bogdan Chiva Giurca, who is going to be talking to us about his journey into the medical industry, and then, of course, helping young people through Medefine Education with some tips and ideas. And if you're a parent watching this right now, I encourage you to really listen in to some of the questions that we're going to be focusing in on. I believe that they're going to help you start the conversation with your children at home. Welcome, Dr. Bogdan. It's so great to have you with me again.
Lovely to see you, Maria, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. Glad to be here with you.
Being a London based doctor, you're also an author, a lecturer at Imperial College London, and you're the founder of Medfine Education. How did you know as a young teenager that medicine was going to be the thing for you? And then where on that journey did you decide to kind of venture off into new paths in
Yeah,
doing all these different roles?
that's an amazing question that I think it's at the back of the mind of every single child out there or the parents when they're asking, what do you want to do in life? I think, Maria, to be honest, I never knew, to be honest, for sure I wanted to do medicine. And that's one of the cliches you don't get to hear as often as always. I always wanted to do medicine. It wasn't the case. And I think it was just a situation that was finding myself in. I was encountering several doctors for various reasons multiple times during my childhood. So, for example, I would have asthma. My mother was sadly diagnosed with cancer. She's fine now, but just those situations, not the illness itself, but just the opportunity for me to witness firsthand how doctors work with each other, with the nurses, with the pharmacists, with the occupational therapists, the physiotherapists on the ward. It was fascinating to see them in action, and I will never forget that when I was 13 and my mom got diagnosed with cancer, somebody just came to me and explained to me in a very funny way how cancers duplicate, and he was making funny faces, but he was able to explain to a 13-year-old child what cancer meant and made me happy that I understood and made me feel involved in my mother's process as well. So for me, that was fascinating. I didn't know for sure that was the time when I wanted to do medicine, but it made me want to explore further. So that was one of my top tips would be, you don't have to know it for certain or for sure. Taste it, try it, see how it is. Get your students and your children to try and do more work experience and more encounters with doctors. So then from there, Maria, I kind of started doing a range of placements. I would shadow nurses, I would shadow researchers, I would shadow doctors. Didn't know what I want to do, but then it became clear that I quite like puzzle solving, problem solving. I quite liked being able to make a decision for individuals and to be in a leadership position. Hence why I think I was more pushed towards medicine. And so I decided to apply to medicine, but I got an interesting story because in fact, apart from those amazing things that you said I do, like I'm a lecturer, I'm an author, I do all of those things, I went to Harvard Medical School and I did all of those things. In spite of those, actually, I failed getting into medical school. So I'm not sure how much of your audience will know, but I didn't get into medical school the first time round, and that was because of my international background. I'm London based now, but I'm originally not from the UK. I have a mixed background, but originally from Romania, and so my qualifications and the knowledge I had to apply to medical school wasn't enough as an international student at the time, and I was disqualified from applying, sadly. But I think in that process, I think I gained a lot of momentum and ambition from the failure. And no success in my life ever taught me as much as that failure. So I think that leads me to tip number 2 for parents, to embrace failure in the students and in the children, to kind of realize that you notice when you fail that you're not invincible. You realize things are fragile. You realize sometimes you have to push extra hard. It humbles you. It gives you a taste of the bitter taste of losing something, and it makes you want to work harder for things. And so I decided to push even harder, and then I managed to get into medical school in the UK. And then that was the moment when my desire to help other international students to succeed was born. Hence the desire to write a book on how to get into medical school, which then eventually became an international best-selling book on Amazon, and then establishing Medifine Education, supporting students, mainly international students across the globe, to enter into top universities within the UK.
Wow, that is, I don't even know where to begin. I think I'm going to take you back to being an international student because being based in the United Arab Emirates and in the Middle East, we have international students going through so many different curriculums. What would your top tip be for an international student after you experienced your journey and now that you're also a lecturer at ICL?
Absolutely. So the most fascinating thing I see, Maria, is when I sit on panels, panel interviews, be it at different medical schools across the UK or when I'm teaching at Imperial, the most fascinating thing I see for those who don't get in is a lack of awareness of what the profession entails because they haven't considered it in long enough. So they haven't started early enough is one of the disadvantages here. I would say if someone may be thinking to do medicine, they may be thinking about doing medicine, I would say give them the opportunity to explore it in its entirety. Get them to meet some doctors, get them to chat to some scientists, get them to chat to the nurses, to the pharmacists, not just the doctors. I think you still learn a lot from all of those professions, and starting early, planning things in advance is crucial because you don't have to cram everything in one go. The other interesting thing with the international students is that they worry mainly about qualifications. I would say qualifications is the least thing you should worry about. There's so many things and so many pathways to go into medicine that you can choose. For example, even if you don't get into medicine the first time round, you can always do an undergraduate course in sciences and then do a graduate course in medicine, which will only lose you 1 year. But in that year, you get to earn another degree. So you finish with a biosciences or biomedical sciences or medical sciences degree, plus a degree of bachelor in medicine and bachelor in surgery as well. So you have 2 degrees at the end of that. So I would say don't be quick to decide not to do medicine just because you haven't got the grades or just because you're not good enough now. I would say you will be good enough over time. Just try and see, is this really what you want to do? And if not, there's so many other careers out there that you can pursue that are very closely linked to medicine, that will fulfill your passion for the healthcare sector as well, such as medical sciences, such as genetics, neuroscience, and so are the others disciplines in there as well. But those would be my main tips: is start as early as you can get work experience, join various lectures, speak to doctors, speak to medical students, ask them about their experience. Are they enjoying it? Are they feeling it, finding it stressful? And then the second one is don't worry about your qualifications because there will always be a program in a medical school that will accept your qualifications regardless of your background. But needless to say, grades do matter. So do be conscious of that and try to work progressively and consider how you can improve your grades over time, by just cramming everything in one go.
Wow. So grades do matter with medical school. How young should teachers, parents be helping their children, considering the already mounted stress on getting grades? What would be the magic number for age, would you say, Dr. Bogdan?
Yeah, so I'm going to split that question into two, Maria, because it's so interesting. There's a missing element in schools, which I think maybe you can support with that, or maybe some of the other education advisors, or even parents themselves. What the saddest thing I see is we never get taught in school, let alone university. You never get taught this in university, but you never get taught how to study, how to learn, how to study. You never get taught those things. And I think that's a failure of the system, sadly, but you have to navigate that failure to make sure you get the students and your children and the applicants to study smart and not hard. It's such a big difference between knowing how to study well with evidence-based tactics and doing shorter intervals, but doing them every single day rather than cramming everything in one go, and even the lectures that you have in school, they are 1 hour long classes, most classes are 1 hour long. And we never criticize that system, but if you look at the studies, you know that after half an hour, a child's attention is gone. So you've lost them in half an hour. You need a break. They need to recollect their thoughts. But still, we continue doing 1 hour lectures because it's easier to timetable them and in that way and chunk them in that way. So I think There's something there about studying smart and not working hard for things. And then in terms of your second part of the question with when should they start, I would say as early as secondary school, so year nine, they should be exploring it. They don't have to do anything very impressive or major. They just have to think about it and maybe ask themselves, is what this doctor is doing maybe something I could do in the future? But what about other careers? Is it just medicine? Oh no, there's neuroscience, there's genetics, and there's nursing, there's pharmacy. What's the difference between them? And then progressively, I would say in year 10, year 11, they should start doing some hands-on activities, be it online or in person, to get a taste of those different professions and choose and decide what's the aim and path they want to go by. But I would say the final year of school should never be devoted to work experience or to deciding. I would say they should have made their mind up by then, and they should focus on that year to get the grades and to also nail those entrance exams, interviews, application. So you don't want to worry about work experience in that final year.
That's also another great question to tap into, because if we look at how the systems are set up, it really is in that final year 12, year 13, or grade 11, grade 12, that schools are giving allowances to students. Would you say that would it be a disadvantage for a young student if they did their work experience in year 9 and 10 or grade 8 and grade 9? Or are medical school interviews expecting more current experiences? Because I know that's a big thing with young people. They're always coming to me and saying, Miss V, I need to get work experience. How can I apply? I won't get in without work experience. And I'm always asking them, well, if everybody's doing that one thing, let's do something different. Like you said, shadow a nurse, visit the pharmacy, speak to different people in that community. But they're adamant about, no, I need to shadow a doctor. I need to be in a hospital or a clinic. So is timing important? Will medical interviews say, oh, sorry, but you did that several years ago. You should have done a little more in year 12 and 13, or does it even matter?
Timing actually doesn't matter that much, but it's a brilliant question. I would say it's not what you say, it's not what you've done, it's how you say or how you talk about what you've done. So how you describe it and how you show that commitment over the years is much more important. So it doesn't matter that you've done 3 intense weeks in year 13. What matters is to show that you've started the process early on. I mean, maybe year 9, year 10, year 11, year 12, you've done different things across the way, but nobody cares too much about the timing. When I'm hired as an admission tutor, when I'm on the interview panels, it's very interesting to see that there's 3 core things I normally look for. Number one is consistency. Number 2 is diversity and variety, and I'll mention what I mean by that. And number 3 is a deeper understanding of the profession that goes far beyond pills and procedures and blood pressures and needles and all of those kind of artificial things that we think medicine is. And when I mean diversity, that second point that I mentioned there, I mean a further 3 bullet points in there. I'm looking for volunteering. I'm looking for research experience, so understanding that medicine is based on evidence and not just opinions. And I'm also looking for clinical work experience. And it doesn't matter, these can be virtual, they can be in person, but there needs to be some support for the local community through volunteering, elderly care home, maybe supporting children from disadvantaged background through tutoring. It could be anything in terms of volunteering, organizing an event, so on and so forth. In terms of research, anything counts as research as long as they do a survey or an EPQ or a school project that counts as a research project. That's absolutely fine. And then clinical work experience, which can be anything that involves a nursing home, a clinical hospital placement, a virtual placement, anything like that is absolutely fine as well. But those are this is the main criteria that I normally look for on a panel.
Tell us what it was like to be a doctor through the pandemic. I think that many young people now thinking about medicine, especially the younger students who went through a pandemic or seeing a different world in medicine, what's the reality like for doctors today?
Yeah, so it's fascinating. I worked two years full time during the pandemic, and it was brutal to say the least. It wasn't easy. These things have to be said that you've had to make some difficult decisions at times. But I would say, Maria, it's contrary to what people would think is difficult. So none of the decisions we had to make based on science or on pills or on medicine were difficult. What was very difficult to manage was what I call the true facet of medicine that nobody sees or understands immediately, which is what I would urge parents and teachers and students to look at, which is the social and psychological element. So if you really think about the COVID-19 pandemic, most people would say it's based on science. I would argue and say it's a social and psychological impact, and the way the pandemic's been contained has been based on social factors. And the reason I say that is because I've had countless of patients who couldn't isolate. I'll give you one example. An Uber driver with 5 kids at home, who was the sole parent bringing the bread at home for the family, who came to me in the emergency department and said to me in my face, I will not be able to isolate. I'm going to have to continue with Uber driving because I have 5 kids at home. I cannot stop working. So individuals like that, I felt embarrassed to even ask him, or to call the police or to say anything, because I knew what he was saying. He was telling me it is impossible based on his social circumstances for him to isolate because his children will starve if he doesn't bring the bread on the table as well. So when you look at medicine from a psychological and social impact that those things have, you notice the health inequalities, the people who are less well in the society. And then when you look at the statistics, you will see that 90% of the nurses who sadly passed away, 95% of the doctors who sadly passed away during the COVID-19 pandemic were from Black and ethnic minority groups. So we're getting into the social determinants and health inequality sphere in here. And that's what made a big impact during the pandemic with people who couldn't isolate and who were spreading the infection even further because they didn't have the support they needed at home. If we could have helped them at home better, we could have prevented the spread of the infection better. And that brings me to an exciting topic of the future of medicine. The future of medicine is beyond pills and procedures. It's about prevention. Hospitals are for repairs, are for patching up people. Health starts at home and health starts in the local community. And that's some of the work that I do with the local government in the UK and across the world in 22 different countries. But it's a new look at health that should inspire the future generation to look beyond pills and needles.
And would you say that a young person thinking about medicine as their future should stop thinking in terms of, I have to go to the clinic to do experience, and should start looking at these social and psychological aspects? Would that make a competitive candidate in a personal statement and in an interview?
Absolutely, Maria. So in our academy, the students that we get for our academy and the students we tutor and that we mentor, when they go into the interview and they talk about the biopsychosocial model or they talk about health inequalities, these are topics that only the top 1% of students will understand. I have medical students who would, even now to this day in year 5 or year 6, they still don't understand those principles. And going into an interview or being able to quote those things that you've learned from the doctors you are shadowing in your personal statement will make you stand out from the crowd when the 99% of all applicants will talk about bones and anatomy and pills and all of those things. Our students learn very quickly to talk about the mental impact, the social impact, the housing that we live in. You could prescribe inhalers for asthma, but if the house has mold inside it, then you're going to get asthma exacerbations ongoing even with the inhalers. So looking beyond the biomedical sphere is something that interviewers and panelists are really appreciating recently. And they would invite the students just to see, is it true they've learned that? And they will try and test them in those interviews to find out, are they lying or have they actually understood that essence of the biopsychosocial model and not just biomedical?
So it sounds to me that a young person thinking about going into medicine really needs to think outside the box and needs to think differently to what the norm is. So if everybody's doing this, you're not going to stand out. You need to do something different. Dr. Bogdan, talk to us about Medifine Education. We met right before the pandemic. We had you live in Dubai, and then of course we couldn't see you again unless it was remotely, and you were very busy through that pandemic time. But Medifine Education followed through on what it aims to do, and that's to help young people get into medical school. You are a British team of British doctors, medical students, and well renowned academies which are ready to empower these international students. But how does a young person get help through that process with your team at Medfine?
Absolutely, Marianne, and thank you for that. And for us, it's all about supporting students wherever stage they're at. So we meet their needs right then and there. So we're really keen to develop a certain mindset from early on. So we have an academy program that runs each year, and it's a year-long program where we've decided to put a cap on the students that we select. So we only have 50 students, so 50 students each year. And that was a conscious decision. We decided to not take more than 50 each year because we're a bunch of doctors and surgeons that would often work in hospital. So we want to make sure we are able to do those sessions and that we are able to deliver the high quality sessions for them in a one-to-one setting. And so we decided to not go above with quantity and sacrifice quality. And so that was a big value for us. However, we do have events such as work experience, be it in person or virtual, mostly within the UK in person, but during the pandemic we've moved everything virtual because it just made it much easier. For us, it's something close to our heart. It's not about the profit. For us, it's all about supporting students who are in need. So if anyone's struggling financially, please drop us a note and an email. We are always keen to open access to individuals who are deserving and who are talented. One of the things that we do are those key points that will help students stand out from the crowd. So we go against the grain, because if you think about it, Maria, there's around 60 to 80,000 applicants each year, and you only have 8,000 places per year. So roughly only top 10% will get in. 10% of those applicants will get in, which means 1 in 10 students will get in, which is crazy. If you think about that statistics, it's scary when you look at it in the first instance. But actually, when you flip it around and when you realize that out of those 10, 9 of them will do the same things, will say the same things, will talk about pills and what they've seen in the anatomy. Once you have that one individual who talks about those other aspects that help them stand out from the crowd, they will immediately get an interview compared to the other students who have not done a personal project, who've not done volunteering or work experience that focuses on other issues as well. So for us, it really is about building a strong community of like-minded individuals. This is why we have a close group of 50 of them. But then for anyone else who doesn't get into the academy, they're more than welcome to join the events where we try to share some of those golden nuggets. And as I said, most of our events are free. And for those that are paid, if anyone ever struggles, we are super happy to support with financial support for deserving and talented students.
And how old are the students that can apply? I mean, how old do they have to be, or what year group do they need to be in to apply to the academy?
Yeah, so most of the students that we have are spread across year 9, year 10, year 11, and year 12. Rarely year 13. Year 13, I normally tend to say we have to panic and rush very quickly because it's very last minute. So usually we love to do what we call a young talent program for the students starting in year 9, year 10, and year 11. And the year 12 is just the perfect time when you can start getting into the meat and the bulk of the things. And the academy includes an A to Z look at the application process, all the way from support with writing the personal statement, interviews, entrance exams such as UCAT, BMAT, strategy for where to apply, and backup options as well. But also everything else is included, such as the work experience, research projects, and support with developing a project as well. But there is no age limit per se. I would say the earliest year we have is year 9, because it's not worth going into it before than that. It's just they need to be a bit mature as well to understand those things.
So exciting. Dr. Bogdan, right before we bring this to a wrap, please share some of your highlights with us. You're an incredible doctor, human, the things that you do for young people and the offer of support that you offer is definitely heart work. I don't see this as, I mean, it's hard work, but it's heart work. And it comes across every time I meet you. And whenever I speak with students who have been in talks where you were there, they walk away feeling very inspired. Share some of those highlights with us.
Absolutely. And Maria, it's all, I mean, those words are very kind, but we have something in common because so are you. You are very inspiring and you always bring together fantastic individuals and people, and you're a powerhouse for surfacing this information to everyone out there. So we're deeply grateful to everything that you do, and students have a lot to learn from you. I
Thank
think some
you.
of the top highlights there are really, I mean, I could brag a lot about myself, but it's always about the students. I think it's always about learning from your failures. I think I will never forget the moment when I tasted that bitter taste of not getting to medical school. And if you were to ask me now whether I would go back in time and change that, I would still not change anything, because if I didn't fail at that moment in time, I would have never realized the full potential of all of those other things that you can achieve if you put in a bit of work, if you surround yourself with great mentors. So surround yourself with people that run at a high temperature, because you're going to start burning with enthusiasm at a high temperature from them too. Surround yourself with the great friends and great mentors who will lift you up, and then keep knocking on doors until somebody answers. And if nobody answers, just keep moving to a next door and the next door, and so on and so forth. But all of those tips that I mentioned here have made me reach a stage in life where I also echo Maria's thoughts here, that it's hard work. I do this as a hobby, really, the teaching of students. I would say my main job is as a clinical doctor, but I also work in policy with the government, and I've been deeply humbled recently to be named top 100 most influential people in health in the UK in the Health Service Journal, which nominated all the way from Health Secretary of State to royal colleges and different people, and deeply humbled for me as a junior doctor to be part of that power list as a young international doctor as well. It's incredible. So that would be my top highlight to date, Maria.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. How could we find Medifine Education, Dr. Bogdan?
Absolutely. So we can share the details. The email is info@medifine.org, and you can find the website, which is medifine.net. And the Instagram is UAE Aspiring Medics. So you can look at all of those. Drop us a note. Always keen to hear feedback. And if you need a hand with anything, we'd love to connect. And hopefully see you next time in person in Dubai for an event.
Can't wait for it. Thank you very, very much for being here and sharing your insights. And if you were a parent, a teacher, or a young person watching, and you're not inspired to go into medicine, then keep watching these spotlights, because we interview professionals from all across the world doing all different types of occupations. So I'm going to re-echo what Dr. Bogdan was saying. Take the time and do some career discovery. And that brings us right to the end. We met with Dr. Bogdan Chiva Giurca, who is a London-based doctor, an author, a lecturer at Imperial College London, and the founder of Medefine Education. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at our next Let's Talk Careers with Miss V.